No, Patrick, clap where it's in the view of your little second camera.
Oh, over here.
Yeah. Also, make sure it's rolling this time because one of the ones you sent me, it was not actually rolling.
It actually is not rolling.
Wow, it's not rolling.
I don't have good spots for B-roll footage.
It's fine. Okay.
I bought the wrong one. Well, oh well.
You're listening to the Janchi Show, hosted by 3 Korean American adoptees diving headfirst into what it means to be adopted, Korean American, and more. And now, here's your hosts, Nathan, Patrick, and KJ.
What is up, everyone? Welcome to the Janchi Show. This is episode 4. It is good to have you here with us for our very first episode with a guest. Nathan, before we get started, can you please tell us what Janchi means?
Sure. Janchi is roughly translated to party or celebration, which we are celebrating our Korean adoption heritage, and that's why the show is live.
That is why the show is live. Did I do the intro wrong?
Yeah, because
we didn't introduce
Patrick
ourselves.
was going to do it actually.
Guys.
Yeah, but no.
It was kind of good though. I was just going to let you go with it. I'm like, we can do that.
I don't know. I just heard Sarah go, and now here's your host, Nathan, Patrick, and KJ. And then I was like, all right,
why would
let's
you
just
do it
roll
again?
into it. Yeah, so.
That's
anyways,
true.
we're still figuring the show out. It's all good.
Sure.
Yeah, it's fine. This is the intro.
Anyways, so we talked to SooJin Pate about being adopted, surprise, her journey back to Korea, and reconnecting with her family. And it is an emotional roller coaster. Gave me all sorts of warm fuzzies. I'm so excited to share that with you. And then later in the episode, we eat Choco-Pies, which, well, you know what? I was going to give you a preview, but just listen through or catch it on YouTube, and you'll see what those are all about. So I don't think there's anything else to say, right?
Nothing else but on with the show.
This is cool. I am so excited to have you on the show because, like everyone else, I have yet to actually meet you in person. So,
yeah, I'm excited
Agreed.
to be here. Thanks so much for inviting me.
Absolutely. Thank you for being our first official guest. We were all guests before, but now it's real. Now we're getting into the real business of the show.
Yeah, I mean, first guest. That is very true. I was thinking about that today, actually.
I feel so honored.
Well, thank you for coming on. You're doing your own show and stuff, so we are really grateful for you to be the first guest. I think you've got an incredibly interesting and amazing and profound story, and I'm really excited to share that and to have you share that with us. So I guess since we're starting, to get started, SooJin, again, thank you. And just to kick it off like we do each of these episodes and each of these interviews, we just want to hear from you a little bit about your adoption story and your background, coming from Korea with your sister, and just hearing what that experience was like.
Sure. So I was adopted when I was 5 years old. I was just 3 months away from turning 6. So very, very close to 6. My sister was 4 years old, and we were adopted together. And from Seoul, Korea, to a small Midwestern town in Minnesota. And because of my age, I remember everything. I remember my family. I remember us being taken to the orphanage. I thought we were going to school, but instead it was an orphanage. I remember being left there and just, again, how traumatizing that was. I remember being taken away at the airport, like literally stripped from the arms of my amma at the airport and crying and calling out for her. And yeah, it was extremely traumatic, as I'm sure you all can imagine. And that experience has haunted me for the majority of my adult life. I've done a lot of work around that trauma. So I can happily say that I'm no longer haunted by it, but it was one of the defining moments of my life. And I think I can't even separate my identity from that experience, just because it's been so embedded like in me and has shaped so much of who I am today.
And I think that's really interesting. I'm in a very early stages of discovery on my journey of looking into Korean culture and heritage and things like that. And one of the things that I've learned is how much that trauma of relinquishment, of abandonment affects you, not only or lays the foundation of affecting you further down the line in your life. I thought one of the very interesting things, and you touched on this, you were adopted with your sister. A lot of people, especially coming from Korea, don't get adopted, with a sibling. Did that help at all? Being adopted with her, did that strengthen your guys' bond? What was that like?
Oh yeah, yes. Yes and no. So it's a complicated answer. I know it sounds like a pretty direct question, but it ends up having a complicated answer. So yes, on the front end, in the sense that so when we were put up for adoption, my amma and my amma was very, very clear that they did not want to separate us. That if she was willing to relinquish her parental rights, we would have to be adopted together. Again, now I didn't know any of this stuff. Okay, this is after
Right.
I reunited with her that I found out all this information. But yeah, so she was adamant that we were kept together, and they said yes. So, and then they found an adoptive family that was willing to take 2 children at the same time. And so that's how we ended up with this family in Minnesota. But the thing is that, while we were during being that traumatic event at the airport, I remember my sitting next to my sister and thinking, well, at least I have my sister. And my sister has also shared with me her thinking the same thought, that, what she was scared of, that she was most scared after, we were separated from our amma. She was scared that they were going to separate the 2 of us. And so she felt relieved when she, realized that they weren't going to separate us. So certainly, for sure, it was a blessing, and it still continues to be a blessing, right? That we're still together. But we had a very tumultuous relationship growing up, and the reason for that is because even though she was just a year and a half younger than me, she has very little memory of like Korea. Where I mean, to this day, I can recount all kinds of stories about my life in South Korea. And so because of that, her ability to assimilate was way smoother than mine. Like, she was happy. She was, the child that the adoption agents promised. She was grateful, happy, go lucky, just like really fun to be around. Whereas me, I was very sad because I'm conscious of everything that I've lost, right?
Yeah.
So absolutely. I was extremely sad, and because of that, my sister, her reception from our adoptive family, and in particular our adoptive parents, and most specifically our adoptive mother, welcomed her and received her as if, like she were her own child. Whereas for me, there was much more of like a distance, like a hand, an arm's distance.
Because you probably had like all those walls, just been like, I remember what happened, and so just that
and honestly, you know what? I wouldn't say that I had walls up, because even though I miss my adoptive mother, or even though I miss my amma, my birth mother, I was still yearning and desiring the acceptance and the love of this new family. So I don't feel like I had walls up. Instead, I think what happened was she sees me as sad. She takes that personally. Yep. As if like, I did this thing for you. I adopted you. I rescued you. I saved your life. And you're going to treat me like this? This is going to be the response, is you're going to cry? And so I think that is more of an accurate explanation of kind of what was going on behind the scenes and why my adoptive mother treated me the way that she did. I'm 5 freaking years old, right? I mean, any child like is so open at that age. 5-year-olds don't have walls up. I mean,
exactly.
not for no reason, right? And the trauma that was experienced to me wasn't that this person harmed me. And so because I have no history of harm with this person, and I know that this is my new family now, I sought their approval, and I was eager and desiring that paternal love from her. So I don't feel like I had any walls up. I was just sad. And she just misinterpreted all of that because she was told that we would be happy, that we would be grateful, that, all these stereotypes about the adoptee.
Well, it's like they set that up to just move the kids along from here to there to be like, okay, well, now that you're in your adoptive parents' hands now, we're done with you. We're going to move on to the next kid. And those expectations, KJ and I talked about it a little bit in his episode of not specifically in the same as this situation, but being adopted, almost feeling a weight of expectation of wanting to try and live up to something that you don't necessarily fully understand or comprehend at that time. And especially for you, you were so cognizant at that time coming over and then just not receiving the same affection, the same love that your sister did, who was able to, like you said, assimilate a lot more smoothly and easily into the American culture, I suppose.
Yeah.
Off of that, you guys came to Minnesota, which I've recently learned is the epicenter of Korean American adoptees in the United States.
Yeah, how did that happen? What the heck?
Yeah, we adoptees affectionately call it the land of 10,000 adoptees, because Minnesota, the tagline is the land of 10,000 lakes.
Yep.
Yeah, so how it got to be that way is, well, Minnesota, it's known historically to be a democratic state. So the liberal politics, along with it's also very Christian. So you have the liberal politics with the sense of charity and seeking to be a good humanitarian and doing unto others, and so that created a hub of all these social services and organizations that were dedicated to international adoption. And so Lutheran Social Services, for example, that's one of the key players in Korean adoption, and it's headquartered here. And they have a sister organization, Korea Social Services in Seoul, which is where I was adopted from, the orphanage that I was at. Mm-hmm. And so it's the combination of those things that made Minnesota really ripe for Korean adoption.
Gotcha.
And did you coming there and you're struggling at first and you're trying to fit in, you're trying to be accepted. Did it make it any easier, I guess, in hindsight? Do you feel like it helped to be in Minnesota, in somewhere that is a little bit more diverse, has a little bit more of a community to engage with? I come from I grew up in an extremely not diverse town, extremely very small, predominantly white city in Indiana. And I really never had connections like that. So when I think of Minnesota and hear these things, I just wonder, for someone like yourself, who was struggling at first when you came over here, did that help at all to have that community there?
Patrick, I find it shocking that you think of Minnesota as this the state, because the way you described your town and your state of Indiana, that is exactly how I would describe the town that I grew up in and Minnesota. So I grew up in a southern Minnesota town, and about 11,000 people. and it was extremely white. So yeah, very, very predominantly white.
So it's the land of 10,000 adoptees,
Yes,
but
yes.
also they were
Exactly.
like everywhere. There's their own second diaspora.
Yes,
Wonderful.
yes.
Everyone had one lake.
Yeah.
Every adoptee had one
And
lake.
one adoptee.
That's how it was.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it. They're
One
spread out.
lake and one adoptee.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in my town, my town is considered, the tagline for that town is called the Chain of Lakes. And there's 5 lakes that are all connected together. And seriously, there were about 5 adoptees. So one lake
Okay, there you go.
per, yeah. And the only people of color, like as I was growing up, were other Korean adoptees in the town. Yeah. So my
But that's
best
good that you
friend
knew
growing
some.
up. Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. So my best friend growing up was another Korean adoptee.
Wow. I didn't know
Yeah,
any
so-
Korean adoptees growing up, so that except for my sister.
Same.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I feel very blessed and fortunate to, not only have my sister, but also to have, a friend who also looked like me as well.
Yeah.
But even though that was such a blessing, I mean, it doesn't take away from all of the racism that I faced, all of the tokenization that I faced, and, all the things that we adoptees talk about in terms of our complications with identity, how we grow up thinking that we're white, like all that stuff, like I experienced as well. So, the fact that I had a best friend who was a Korean adoptee and a sister who was an adoptee, that it didn't stop that.
Right. Did having that small community of fellow CADs, which if you didn't know, that's the acronym for Korean American Adoptee. I didn't know that. But so having that small community, was that a thing that you talked about? I know that obviously you were probably young. So when I was that young, I definitely wasn't talking about race. But was that so like, did you hash out your adoption, or were you just like, oh, you're adopted, that's cool, anyways, let's go swing? Or, what was that like?
Yeah, no. So for me, I've always been open about sharing my story. And my friends, they were also like curious, very curious. So we talked openly about that. Certainly with my friends and with my adoptee friend in particular. Yeah, absolutely. We talked about our stories, but because she was adopted when she was an infant, like so many of us, she didn't really have, anything to share. But certainly as, Asian Americans, we talked about, as we grew older, talked about what it felt like to be discriminated against and to be stereotyped against and all that stuff. But I honestly, I can probably count on one hand those type of conversations that we had as adult or as we got older, like junior high school age. Because as you all know, none of us, we don't want to be different. We want to be just like everybody else, right?
Yeah, high school is the time of fitting in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember feeling that at even a younger age, just even in like middle school and at the end of grade school, like just wanting to be the white person and wondering why I wasn't the white person and why people were like, why do you not look like the white people? And not understanding, that sense of being pulled away from your culture, your native heritage and stuff like that. And for me, it took a long time to even have those conversations with other people. And, I did, unfortunately, like my sister and I, we were only a year and a half apart and we never had these conversations. She's non-biologically adopted as well, but we kind of just went on our separate routes growing up, and we didn't even talk about it. And that was the only other person in my town who looked like myself. And for me, it was very much about fitting in. For her, it was, I think, a little bit, but I think she understood a lot earlier than I did about what it was like to be put down for being different and to not have someone there, like a group of even one friend, to be like, you're fine, and to bring you under their wing and to hang out with. So,
but I Patrick, I don't know if this makes you feel any better or not, but even though I had my adoptee friend, like that didn't stop me from getting teased. You know, and it's not like she stood up for me, and I don't recall her ever being teased in front of me. But I'm, it could also be that, she might remember that she was, and I didn't stand up for her. So
I definitely get that. I feel that with my sister sometimes too. Like when I look back on that past relationship, it's like, where were these points where I could have stood up for you and been that rock that I never had that you
yeah,
needed in that moment? So, yeah, it's just weird it's not weird, but it's cool, and nicely reflective to have these conversations now, and hope that, I've been able to pick up the slack and do better as I've gotten older
mm-hmm.
for her. So,
Mm-hmm.
was having even that small group of friends, especially having a best friend who was a Korean adoptee, I know that you went back and did a birth search or reunited with your family even 20 years later.
Yes.
Did that did that friendship help to spur that journey on? Were those conversations initiate that?
Yeah, we actually stopped being friends. Yeah, prior to that happening. So
Okay.
we kind of fell apart, or like not apart. We went our separate ways.
Yeah.
Like
Okay.
I mean, there
Yeah.
wasn't any there wasn't anything dramatic. It's just,
Right.
as we go to college,
Yeah.
you start losing touch. So yeah, we just kind of lost touch after that first year of college. And my search didn't begin. It was actually a graduation present to myself. So after I
Oh,
graduated with my bachelor's degree, I had, as a gift to myself, I said, I'm going to start the search. And so, yeah, and I didn't receive word about them finding my amma until I was in grad school. So this was quite some time later.
what was that experience like for you to go back and reunite with your ama and have, be having these memories from 5 and being taken away and not having a choice or a say in it? What was that like for you to finally be able to go back?
Patrick, I'm like sitting here giddy because I'm so happy that you asked that question. It was incredible. It was, I have been dreaming about this moment since I was 5 years old. So I'm 25 years old at this point, and not only did it like meet my expectations, but it surpassed my expectations
Oh, that's
in the
fantastic.
sense of just how, like, I always knew in my bones, I always knew in my gut that our amma did not give us up willingly. Like, I knew it because I
Mhm.
remember being loved by her. I remember being treasured by her. So our reunion moment, when we got off the plane and she saw us coming in with our bags. And, my sister and I, like, we haven't seen her in 20 years, right? So we don't know, like what she looks like or anything like that. But we're like looking around like this. And then all of a sudden we see this little woman, like weaving, ducking under the tape, and running to us, like running like this. And we embraced. And then literally, we embraced, I don't know, maybe for like 30 seconds. And then she just dropped onto her haunches and just weeping, sobbing, wailing, like her wails filled the airport. And after I learned more about our adoption story, when I reflect on that moment, I feel like she was rewriting history. Like she was expressing and unleashing everything that she had to suppress when we were taken from her 20 years ago in the exact same airport.
Oh, wow.
Because later on, what I had found out was, because I asked her, like, I thought when she came to pick us up at the orphanage, I thought we were going home. Like, my sister and I It was celebration day for us because we thought we were going home. All of our friends were so happy for us. And we gave them hope thinking that, because they're like, well, if your Amma came for you, then maybe our Amma and Appa will come back for us. And so we gave them so much hope. And for us to actually end up at the airport and not at our home, I'm constantly asking questions. I'm like, Amma, where are we? Why aren't we at our uncle's house? Like, why aren't we going home? Like, and she was silent the entire time. She did not speak an entire word from the moment we left the orphanage. So, from the orphanage to the airport, it's like an hour and a half, 2-hour drive. She didn't say anything. When we get to the airport, I still have more questions. She did not say anything. When I was called out for her, she turned her back and walked away, was silent the entire time. And the reason why she was, come to find out, is because the orphanage director ordered her to do that. That was the advice that he gave her. He said, you cannot talk to her. You cannot say a word. Don't say anything because you're going to make it worse. That was the advice that he gave her. And so that's why she was silent. And now, 20 years later, she doesn't have the orphanage director's, words in her head, and she's going to fully express whatever she's feeling. And it all came out, and it was like amazing. And we just heard like the things that I found out, so like I told you, I knew in my gut that we were not, she didn't voluntarily give us up, and I was right. We were stolen from her. We were taken from her. And she was beaten into signing the parental, the parental rights giving away. She was literally beaten by my uncle to sign that. So what happened was my adoptive, my dad, my appa, my birth father, he died when I was 4. Let's see. No. When I was 5. Yep, I was already 5. So he had died. He drowned in the river and on his way home from work one day. So after he died, because of Confucian family law at the time, and my parents were legally divorced at the time, even though they had come back together, but they had not remarried yet. And so because she was divorced, we became the property of our father's family. So his death, in one fell swoop, my mother lost the house, lost her children, lost everything because her husband died. And so as the property of our uncle had promised my Amma that they would take care of us. But instead, behind her back, they put us up for adoption. But then, and they were going to keep it a secret the entire time until it came to having to sign that release form, that parental release form. And then that's when they had to go back and reach out to my uncle to convince my Amma to sign that release form. And that is how she got beaten into signing.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
And, the logical question that a lot of people ask is, so like, why did they do that? Like, was there financial incentive? And yep, absolutely right. They got paid.
Mm-hmm.
They got paid.
And that was a
So my
majority of
Amma
adoptions
said,
back then, right?
Yeah. So
money.
my Amma was saying that, we're a very poor family, okay? And all of a sudden, after we were adopted, my uncle now all of a sudden has 3 different properties.
I take it
That's why
your Oma is not very close with your uncle still?
No.
Man.
She has nothing to do with, no.
And so nobody else, did any other family members come to the airport to meet with you?
Well, yeah, like our whole side, my mother's side. So her brothers, sisters, my cousins. Yep. My grandmother, my halmuni, my halabuji was dead by that time. But yeah, they were all there.
So
Wow.
20 years of this emotion of waiting to see you is all building up to that moment in the
Yes.
airport.
Yeah.
I had something similar where my family, when they met me at my airport too, there was 37 years of pent up, things that they wanted to say and do and say when they got there. And same thing, there was a lot of crying at the airport. So
And so, because I was 5 years old, so this kind of goes back to the second or third part of your question, Patrick. Because I was 5 years old, I remembered everything. So, and like memories started coming back to me. But I don't know if this will surprise you or not, but it certainly surprised me. But the memories came back to me through food. So I would taste something and I'm like, oh my gosh, I've had this before. Yeah. I swear to God, I had that thought like 20 times a day while I was there. Like, I've had this before. And then my memories being triggered, like, when I remember eating this. And the smells too, as well. Like so my uncle, he lives in Seoul, and we stayed at his home because my amma, she lives in the village. So after we arrived at the airport, we stayed in Seoul with my uncle for like the first few days. And I remember waking up my first morning, right? I remember waking up my first morning, and like before I even opened my eyes, I like took in this whiff of like the sewage. It was this combination of like methane gas and like and gochujang and sesame oil and and kimchi, and I'm like smelling all this at once, and again it's like, oh my gosh, I'm home. Wow. It was so incredible. Like, I had no idea that smells and taste would be my pathway, my doorway to unlocking all of these stored memories that haven't made its way out. Yeah.
Just watching you describe it and think about those smells again, like I was like, I think I can smell the gochujang because I just had some for dinner, and I was like, and it's like, it's so amazing to hear you to relay the story. I was, just learning what we've learned about you prior to having this conversation. It was, I think we go into these not knowing specifically what to expect out of each guest. I think that's the whole point. We're looking to learn, especially
each guest being just you.
Oh, right.
We've only had just you as our guest. So
that's what I meant, guest, without that S there. And so I guess I'm still, I want to know a little bit more even about that whole trip. Like, what was planned for you guys to do? I mean, this is not only just an emotional reunion, but you're now back in your home country, and there's so many things that you need to experience that you had at 5 that you're now 25. It's like, okay, I got to jump back in. Like, what things did you do? What stands out to you the most that you remember from that trip specifically, besides the reunion, obviously?
Yeah, sure. Oh, okay. Thanks for asking that question too. Okay, so, well, the first thing that we did that very next day was to go and visit our Halaabuji's burial site. So, and to pay our respects. And so that was pretty amazing to be like already kind of immersed in this ritual, right?
Yeah.
This very powerful, very traditional ritual. And so watching what they were doing, my amma was doing, and us, I felt like a little kid. I felt like I was back, 5 years old, watching my amma and learning from her on what to do and how to pay my respects. Yeah, and actually, I did feel in a lot of ways like a little kid, because I felt that my amma was trying to do all the things that she missed out on. So here's another so probably like day 2, my amma braiding my hair, brushing and braiding my hair, and that's another memory that I have, of my amma like brushing my hair before bedtime and singing to me. And then I also, and her doing my makeup, tweezing my eyebrows. I mean, like all the girly things,
all of the classic mother things. Yeah, nice.
That you wish that you had like a mother to do and to teach you, because my adoptive mother certainly didn't do any of that stuff. And so I felt like the universe was storing these moments just for me and her. And that's why I had such a shitty mom, shitty adoptive mom. I don't know. Can I swear? Maybe not.
Yeah, go for it.
Yes.
Oh,
You're
okay.
Goodness.
Yeah. So that like all the things that I missed out on because I didn't have such a great adoptive mother, I was able to get when I reunited back with my birth mother. And
within 2 days.
Yes, in 2 days. You know, she bathed. Gosh, another thing is like she bathed me. You know, again, this was day 2 where I was in the bathroom. You know, and are you familiar with how they take showers and
0%.
stuff?
Yeah, I'm 0%.
okay.
As a
too.
very American person hearing she bathed me, I'm like, but you're 25 and you're not like, that's just weird optics for me. So if you could just explain that to me, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, let me break it down for you.
Yeah.
So the the bathroom floors are all tile. And the quote unquote bath or the shower, there's no tub or anything like that. It's just a handheld spray and or like a tub of water that you fill up and then you just kind of do like a sponge bath essentially is what it is. So I'm in there doing my sponge bath. And I say this, I want to preface that this was back in 2002. So like there's a lot of Korean homes now that have like showers and tubs and all that stuff.
Right.
So this is like very dated. But at that time, you know, my family didn't have any of that. And also to this day still don't because they're poor. But so I'm doing my sponge bath and she comes in and I go like this and I'm thinking like she's just going to brush her teeth or whatever. But nope, she nestles down right beside me. She takes away the washcloth in my hand and she starts bathing me. And I kept saying, I'm like, Amma, no, it's anio, meaning no, like, it's okay. Like, I'm like, I can do it. Like, I can do it myself. And she's like, anio, Amma. And then I realized like, oh, like this is for her, you know,
Right.
like
Yeah.
me letting her do this is like a gift that I can give her because this is something that she's probably been missing, number one, you know, all these years. And like something that she's just been waiting to do, you know, for all this time. And I also felt that as she was scrubbing me down and rubbing my arms and washing my hair, I also felt like she was trying to see like how healthy I was and whether or not like I was taken care of and to just make sure that I'm okay. So it was really, I know it sounds awkward, you know, KJ, you had mentioned, you know, a 25-year-old woman with her and her mother like bathing her. I know it sounds awkward, but it was not one bit. It was like one of the most, I remember sobbing. I just remember like weeping while she was doing it because like I had missed so much a mother's touch. So much. I never got that from my adoptive mother. So even for me, I had been waiting just as long as my amma to be able to be touched like that.
Yeah, I in a small way relate. So, you know, for me, my love language is touch, and which generally means I actually don't like to be touched that much because I find that people are often too frivolous with how they touch. Like I don't know, people give high fives or hugs or whatever. I'm like, this doesn't mean that much to me. But I remember one time I was just going through a hard thing in life, and my parents and I, who are all Christian, I had just been away. Maybe it was college, maybe it was while I was here in Springfield. But I reconnected with them, and they just laid their hands on me and prayed for me and had both of them just like rubbing my arms and rubbing my back. And that was more comforting than anything that they ever said. And it just broke down so much in me because, yeah, like that physical touch was so profound and communicated so much more than any words could possibly convey.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's absolutely a beautiful moment. And also it does help that it wasn't like a shower. Like I was thinking.
Right.
So
And I know you say it sounds awkward, but I don't think it is. At the moment, it starts to feel like it might be, and that's why you probably said, "Oh no, it's fine. I can do it myself." But I also had a moment where my 50-year-old brother held my hand when I was there, and I'm 30. Actually, this was a couple years, 40, and he's 50, and we're holding hands. But it was a moment that he had wanted to do again, touch a moment like that he hadn't done since forever. So
and my amma
makes sense.
My amma could not take her hands off of us. Like if she wasn't holding our hands, her hand was on our thigh, like, or rubbing our legs or our arms, or like she was constantly touching us. You had other things, you had asked about, like, what else did we do? Like, we did all the traditional things that Korean families do. We had picnics along the river. We went on a little short vacation to the East Sea, and went camping. And, but one of the things that I can't wait to share this with you is, we wanted to go back to our hometown, where we grew up, which was, in, Kumi. Kumi is the larger town. And, but you have to cross the river, the Nakdong River, in order to get to our village. And so we went to our village, and it was, I'm sorry, I'm like waterworks here. I was not planning to cry.
Me too.
I
I know.
I was like, I'm glad I don't have to like be your interviewer because I'm just on this ride with you.
I don't want people to see me just pouring tears.
So our first stop was the Nakdong River. That's where I really wanted to go first, because this is what started my whole adoption. Was because my father died here, and it was so interesting because the river was very dry, so it wasn't the scary river that I had always imagined in my mind. I was thinking of the Nakdong as like the Mississippi River, that it's deep and it's muddy and like, and it murky and
everything's always scarier when you're younger.
Exactly.
Bigger.
Exactly. Yeah. But I get there. Well, but here's the thing. In 2000, when I was little, there was no dam, and they had built a dam, and that, I guess that river was very treacherous, because it was very deep and, but when they built that dam, it created much calmer waters and stuff. So, but anyway, so I collected some water, and I collected some of the sand from the riverbed, which I still have to this day. And then from there we made our way back to our village, and I wanted to take the route that I remember my father walking when he would come home from work. And so we started at the edge of the river and walked, and took that route, and that I've been reliving in my mind. And here's like the most amazing thing about it is that not only was it exactly like how I remembered, okay, like I was ahead of the pack. I was leading the pack. Because I was just so excited, because I wanted to know what was true and what wasn't. Because after 20 years, I don't know if I dreamed this, like if this is dreams that I had, or if it's like real memories that I have, right? And so I was excited to figure out whether or not I was right or not. And so I remember there was this river that was very scary to me, because a snake was coming down the hill and scared me to my feet. And I remember running to my amma and being all scared and all that stuff because of the snake. Well, this river in my mind, which was so big, okay, I literally could straddle it with my feet. That's how how wide it was. And the walls, the stone wall that I remember walking, like that kind of led us to our house. Again, I in my memory, it's this formidable wall, super tall. It literally came to here, like to my shoulder. And I'm 5'1", okay? Like, I'm not that tall to begin with. So it's like 4 feet high. So I guess the point I'm trying to make is everything was I remembered everything. It's just that now that I'm much taller, everything was miniature.
Right.
Like in reality, things were much smaller. So we rounded the corner to our house. The rose bush that my father planted next to our outhouse was still there.
Wow.
Our outhouse was gone, and our two houses, we had a winter home and a summer home. Those two houses were gone. But it didn't stop me from, sharing with my amma, like our houses were here. This was where your garden was. This is where your clothesline was, where my sister and I would catch dragonflies and pin them with our clotheslines. And I remember the tree that I was swinging off of and fell and hit and, bumped my head. I also remember so there was this big stone that I fell off, which led to, this little scar on my nose. A lot of people think it's a nose piercing gone wrong, but no, it was from that rock that I fell off of. And so I was sharing with her all these things, and she's like, nah, yes. And so I'm still parsing out and waiting, wanting more memories to come to me just by inhabiting that space, right? When all of a sudden our translator comes up to me and he's like, your amma has been calling for you. She really wants you. Come with me. So I follow him, and it wasn't that far. We didn't walk that far, but guess what? Our neighbor was still alive after all these years.
Wow.
So in my memories, she was an old, wrinkly woman, and she's still, and for her to still be alive after all these years. So, and I remember, so there was a wall that divided us, and I remember going up on my tiptoes on that wall, which is how I fell, on my tiptoes to look over the wall and, just to see what was going on with our neighbors and stuff. And so we get over there. She is now completely blind, but she remembers us. And she's like, I've been wondering about you all this time. What happened to you? You were here one day and you were gone the next. It's like you disappeared. We've been wondering. Our whole village has been wondering about you. And so we told her and everything. And because she's blind, she wanted to know us. So she asked if she could touch us with her hands. And it was so powerful and so amazing. And after she touched us with her hands, she said, I can die now. I can die a happy woman now, knowing that you all are safe and that I got to quote unquote see you one last time. And it was so amazing. And so she asked us, do you remember me? And I said, yes, I remember you. I remember trying to I remember you. And one of the stories that she shared with me was, she's like, see that persimmon tree right there, which bordered our house, and which is the persimmon tree that I fell off of and hurt myself. She's like, you used to collect the persimmons in a basket and say, I'm selling persimmons. Would you like to buy some from me? So I was already hustling at a very young age, trying to make money.
Amazing.
Selling your neighbor her own persimmons. Nice.
Yes, exactly. And so then the next day, we decided, because we wanted to visit our, she had told us that all these villagers had been wondering where we were, and she encouraged us to come back the next day and to visit the other villagers. So we did that. We went and got all this food, as a way to say thank you, to them. And we delivered food to all, and they're old. I mean, they're like in their 90s, and, many of them like can't walk that far. And so we're literally delivering. Are you familiar with like, what is it, the Meals on Wheels?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. It was like Meals on Wheels, but like we're delivering it, like, we're walking to them. And with each villager, they would, again, share us stories, tell us what my sister Abby, SooJin at that time, and I were like, and shared funny stories about us and all kinds of stuff. And the villagers were just so incredibly gracious. And one of them sent us home with a dog, a new puppy, as a gift. And so, and then we named that puppy after the town Kumi. But anyway, it was like really amazing to be able to see the people who still remembered us and have been wondering about us after all these years.
That really is amazing. I feel like you hear a lot of stories about reunions, and happy ones that have exceeded expectations like yours have, but you hear about that immediate family, maybe a parent or a brother or a sibling that you haven't seen. You don't really hear stories that I went back to the village where I was raised and everybody knew me still. They were all there. So I think that cool. That's insane and incredible that they were still there, that you had the opportunity to go and interact with them and to relive, not to relive, but to then can progress still from that moment. I think that is from everything that you said, I think that's just blowing my mind. It's hard to almost comprehend that you were able to have that, and to have to go through such a traumatic experience to then be fulfilled in that way. I think it is so powerful and profound, and something that I think a lot of adoptees need to hear, because people are afraid to go on these journeys, and rightfully so. You live through this traumatic experience, you carry this forever, and it's really hard to take the leap and to take the step and make that and start that search, because you never know what you're going to find. And I think that your story specifically, especially because you came with those memories and you had these sensations that were able to bring all these memories back, I think is something that I really appreciate you sharing that with us, because and sharing that with our audience, because I think that's going to affect a lot of people in a really positive way.
I'm curious, being so old, quote unquote, when you were adopted, and then living in America for 20 years and then going back to Korea. For us, I feel like there's always this wrestling between Korean and American as identities, because we are Korean and also are American and somehow feel like imposters in both. So being adopted at your, quote unquote, older age, and living 20 years and then going back and having these incredibly powerful memories and recollections and things. And even for your sake, just like coming back even with some Korean language skills.
Yeah.
What did that do to your sense of identity as a Korean, as an American, as a family member, kind of all of that?
Sure. KJ, so, I had thought that that once I was among my people who all looked like me, that I would feel this instant sense of belonging. And it was actually the opposite. Because the moment I opened my mouth, it gave me away. And right. And the fact that I don't know the language. I mean, yes, I know like simple greetings and I can order food, but like that's about it.
Oh,
you
nice.
can't have meaningful conversation or get to know somebody, So yeah, because of that, I felt more American in Korea than I ever felt like in the US.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I felt so like an American. Mm-hmm.
But then coming back to America, did you feel like more empowered to own your Korean side?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Because I mean, I came back definitely with more questions than answers, but because of so many of my questions were answered,
Right.
and so many of what I wasn't sure if, like, in terms of my memories, if they were accurate or not, like, now that I had that confirmed, I came back so much more kind of assured in my own sense of self.
Yeah.
And I think the best way for me to explain it is through the Sankofa bird. Are you familiar with the Sankofa bird?
Mm-mm.
So it's a mythological bird that is from the Akan. So it's coming from Africa, and the meaning behind this mythological bird is that you can't know your past, or I'm sorry, you can't understand your present, and you can't understand where you're going unless you know your past. And that's what I got from going to Korea and reuniting with my parents. Was I had a really, really strong sense of my past and my history. And so because of that, I came back having a much more clear, kind of confident understanding of like what my present is and the direction that I need to go in regards to my future.
Gotcha.
So I think that's
Yeah,
really
that makes
amazing.
sense.
And I think to kind of lead into that and talking about your present and getting that really foundational past and being very strong in that and then moving forward from there, you're extremely entrenched in the Black, Indigenous, people of color community. As an educator and as somebody who's lived the intercountry transracial adoptee experience in, a predominantly white area. I want to ask you a little bit about the Antiracist Parenting Podcast. But something I thought that you wrote that was really interesting is that you've been excited about the Korean American and Asian American communities coming together in solidarity behind the Black Lives Matter movement and things like that. I want to know, I was wondering what about that and about all of these experiences that you've now had coming back from Korea and really and feeling more assured. How did that affect you there, and how has that now played into your current present, and what excites you most about what that community is doing in terms of that movement?
Sure. Okay. So I think given the culmination of my lived experience, me reuniting with my birth family and filling in the gaps of knowledge and history and all that stuff, as well as my training. So, I went to a historically Black college and university.
Yeah.
I went to Howard. And so all that together, what it made me realize was, yes, I mean, and I want to be careful in making this comparison, because I am in no way saying that Asian Americans or Korean adoptees, that experience is anything like being enslaved. Okay.
Right.
But what I will say is that the project of colonization is something that for me unites like so many communities of color. And so it is through learning about the Black experience and how, and not just the Black American experience, but the African diasporic experience, because all of Africa was colonized. It was only through learning through that I started to think about Korean adoption as a colonial project as well. And seeing myself along with like my Black brothers and sisters as a colonized subject. And so that is that. So once I made that connection in terms of how colonization, racism, white supremacy, we're all affected by it, right? I mean, in different ways, for sure. But there's so many overlaps in terms of similarities, because I can talk to I can talk to a Black person and talk to them about my experience about like internalized racism, my experience of being tokenized, my experience of being stereotyped against and all that stuff, and they're like yep, they're like right with me, right? So there's also a lot of shared experience because we are oppressed in this country as people of color. And so I think that's where I guess that's what has kept me like in constant community with Black, Indigenous folks and folks of color, because of that shared oppression. And because we have this shared oppression, we also have a shared goal for liberation and a shared practice of resistance. And when I learned more about like Korean history, like how badass Koreans are, like we have a long history of resistance and trying to resist colonization from the Chinese, from the Japanese, from the Americans. I mean, my goodness, like Korea has been like an epicenter of colonization, right? So yeah, once then it just made even more sense for me to stand in solidarity with my Black and brown brothers and sisters. So, and I think that is what is most exciting about this moment is I'm doing a lot of volunteering and working to educate folks in the Asian community to examine and to then root out white supremacy in our lives and also anti-Black racism, like in our communities. And in having those conversations, I've been talking to like older people, people that I probably wouldn't cross paths with, like at a university or at a diversity, equity, and inclusion training, that I do. And because of this movement for Black lives is bringing people is activating them in ways that they've never been activated before. Certainly with white folks, but other folks from our communities, and particularly the older generation. And so to be able to share with them and help them see the connections between our oppression and the oppression of Black people, like that excites me, because when I see the light bulb, like you see the recognition, like, yep. Oh yeah, I get, like they're just like us, in the way that they've been treated. Yeah, that excites me a lot.
Yeah, I think it is really exciting, especially that through line of colonization and then identity. Just us, or all of these different oppressed groups. When you think about colonization, having their identities ripped away, like that's one of the things that really connects us, and it is exciting to see all these different groups come together now, or starting to come together, at least I can say, to stand together about that. I think that really is amazing.
And all the stories that come out.
Yeah, absolutely. So talk to us a little bit about the Antiracist Parenting Podcast.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Great.
I thought I was going to say something else, and I was like, that's the question. Why are you saying anything else?
That's the question. Okay, yes. Happy to answer that question. So one of the things I've had this idea in my head for probably 5 to 6 years is in my head, it was going to be like a blog series. So I'm a writer. And so whenever I'm thinking about putting something out in the world, it's usually like in written form. And so I was thinking about putting a series out called Letters to My Daughter to talk about anti-racist parenting, to talk about the ways in which I am intentional about the way I parent her so that I don't reproduce the harm that I experienced as a child, and didn't want to pass on any of the bad habits I learned from the way that I was parented. And as well as, being intentional. So my daughter is mixed Black. Her father is Black. And also being intentional about, raising this child of color to be able to stand in her truth, to love herself so strongly that it withstands all the negative messages that she's getting from society. So that was those were like the two primary purposes of why I wanted to write these letters to my daughter. Okay, so fast forward. About a month and a half ago, my friend Hannah calls me up and she's like, "Hey, I was wondering, do you want to start a podcast with me?" I'm like, sure. So like my mind would never go to a podcast because I'm not a tech person, as you found out when we first met.
That was flawless.
So yeah, my mind does not immediately go to podcast, and I said, well, sure. What were you thinking? And she said, well, something about parenting. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I would love to do a podcast like on anti-racist parenting. And so that's what we ended up doing, you know, is coming together and doing this anti-racist parenting podcast. So the purpose of this podcast is we are trying to create an anti-racist world. Where how do you create an anti-racist world? Through people, through getting people. We're like, honestly, what I see myself is I am trying to build a cadre of anti-racist warriors to be in this fight against racism and white supremacy. And that is the point of this podcast, is to get more parents. So parents, we're trying to train them to be anti-racist. And then in their training, train their children so that the next generation after them has that training. And then those children will already have that training that by the time they're parents, it's like autopilot, you know, like this, they're automatically raising their children to be anti-racist. So that is the big vision of our podcast.
Yeah, I listened to your first episode last night. It was amazing. I really connected with a lot of what you said in it, because I am also a parent of young kids at the moment with a 4 and 2-year-old, and your conversation. What was his name? Brian, I think.
Oh no, it was Daniel.
Daniel. Sorry, yeah. Your conversation with him, and you guys were talking about what kinds of things to teach your kids. How to be anti-racist and what timing to have those conversations with them, at what age was appropriate. And I was a question that I kept waiting and listening to and just soaking in everything that you guys were talking about. It was really eye-opening. So in addition to that, what other things, as a parent of myself, would you suggest, and other people that are listening to, at what ages and things that we can do for our kids to help with that, especially at a young age?
There's never an age too young. So, you know, I mean, when my daughter was in the womb, I was reading Malcolm X and James Baldwin and Audre Lorde to her. So like nice. It's never too young. And you know, by the time she came out, you know, like our library is filled with children of color. And the books that we got from our white friends with white characters, I literally took a crayon to, and I colored. Yes. Okay, talk about I colored. Yeah. Yep, I did. To match my daughter's complexion. Yeah. So, and even with the Barbies, you know, she would get Barbies from, folks, and I would take a marker.
From folks. Very weighted folks.
So I mean, honestly, there's like, it's not how you raise anti-racist children, to me, isn't any different from how you raise a child to survive in our society. You know, like how you raise them to talk, to be able to ask for what they need, to use their words, to walk, all this stuff. It's not separate. It's not, in my mind, it's essential. It's just as essential as learning how to hold a spoon or learning how to use chopsticks. Yeah.
Well, I was able to listen to both of your episodes. I listened to the second episode today with Carla. And I really liked what she said about modeling. So my fiance is a 8th grade English teacher, and that's something that we talk about a lot. We don't have kids yet, definitely in the future, but that's something that we talk about a lot. And I thought it was really powerful to hear her talk about that and reinforce this idea of these learned behaviors that you're talking about. You know, this isn't something that you can just, that you're just like, okay, you're 5 now and we're going to start talking about this. No, It's like, this is something we do from the jump that we're going to go ahead and this is part of real life. This is reality.
Yeah. And I would say that it's also your responsibility as a parent. Like this is a core responsibility in the way that your responsibility is to raise them to be healthy and safe and all that stuff. Like it's a core responsibility that you raise them to know how to be in the world and to be in a relationship with people who are different from you in a way that isn't reproducing racial hierarchies.
Right. Yeah. In the same breath as we say, raise your kid to be kind and anti-racist.
Yes.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly.
I think it's time for.
Is it time for food? Are we getting to that?
That's
point?
what I'm feeling. SooJin, when you replied, Jerry asked, like, do you have access to Choco-Pies? And you were so excited about them. I've never had them. So I think it's time for us to jump in. Let's take a break and we'll be right back with SooJin and the Choco-Pies.
We'll be right back.
Nathan, what are we eating today, man?
We are eating Choco-Pies.
Choco-Pie.
Boom. These, if you don't know what they are, they look very similar to a moon pie. Mine specifically is the brand of Orion. Says it's been around since 1974. And you guys have Lotte?
Lotte.
Okay.
The original.
The original,
baby.
So that was the original one. I got the wrong box again. Okay. But this just means I have to buy the other one to compare now. So I'm not too opposed to that.
What flavors does everyone have?
Marshmallow.
There's only one flavor.
Okay, so here's the deal. I went to my local Korean market and I found
Oh wait, yours says
The green tea.
Choco
Yeah.
Pie.
Oh,
Yeah.
Interesting.
And then I have the original Choco Pie as well.
SooJin gave the green tea a hard no head shake.
Exactly. There's
That's
only
good.
one. The original.
Oh, okay.
Original
I was-
one.
I have no idea, so I'm excited to dive right in.
Now I gotta just get rid of this box. It's not even.
So SooJin, you have had these before.
Oh, absolutely. I
Tons of
love
these.
these.
Did you have these when you were in Korea 5 years old? Like, you remember? Or
I
did you
feel
have
like
them here?
I feel like I did. Just because I remember eating moon pies here and thinking I've had this before.
Similar. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
All right.
I've had a moon pie, but I have not had one of these. So
All right.
I am
Are
excited.
we opening now?
I opened mine. KJ's already eating his.
Uh-huh.
I should have got a
So,
napkin.
full disclosure, I'm usually the guy who's never tried anything. However, I bought a box last week, and we took too long to record this episode, and I ate the entire box. So I have
Patty
had a
Cakes got
chocolate pie
hungry.
before.
Mm-hmm. Good excuse.
Okay, I still haven't
Good
eaten
excuse.
it. I don't love sugar, and the marshmallow is very marshmallowy.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, so
Patrick, you're a
beautiful.
man after my own heart. You can't just have one.
You can't. That's
So-
why the boxes are so cheap.
Yeah, my
Mhm.
box
$3.
comes with 12.
Uh-huh.
Does the other one have 12 in it as well?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this was $3.99.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah,
I feel like I'm
$3.99.
eating a hostess snack, like a zebra cake.
Oh
or,
yeah.
So one of
What's
the
the other-
criticisms I had, not that there was any criticisms, but when I first ate one, I thought I could use more marshmallow filling. I think that is just the American
I would agree.
in me, though. It's just I want more of the filling. That's just a classic thing, I think.
Can
But
you,
do you
like-
like the extra double stuffed Oreos?
That's what I was going to say. Can you like Oreo it up and like get two of these suckers and just smush them together?
I do like the extra
Huh?
double stuff.
Okay,
Mhm.
see, I don't.
What?
Yeah,
I
it's
just
a little too much.
told
You
you,
don't
I,
even like Twinkies.
I would take shrimp crackers over these Choco Pies, like 98 out of
Interesting.
100 days of the week.
You're not a sweets
98 out
person,
of
huh,
100.
KJ?
Nope.
I'm a sweets person.
Okay,
You're
I'm
not a
diving
spicy
in.
person either.
I'm diving into the. No, I am a spicy person.
Oh, I thought you weren't a spicy person.
No, I wasn't when I was a young lad, and
Mm.
now I am a spicy person.
Yes, this
Both
is
in
good. And this
personality
goes
and
well
in flavor palette.
with like a milk or a coffee or
Oh, coffee.
you
It's
know,
like almost like
that's
a
what I'm
donut.
having. I'm having chocolate coffee right here. So
Nathan,
All right.
we know that is straight soju.
it's coffee and soju. I don't know. Is that a thing? That might not be a bad idea.
Okay, so
I have to admit, I did soju and Gatorade recently.
What?
Yeah, you're welcome.
Is that like did you do a flavored soju with the Gatorade?
Mm-mm.
Oh, okay. I was like, I wanted a strawberry soju and a strawberry Gatorade for extra strawberry punch. I just tried the green tea Choco Pie. I like green tea. I don't know how I feel about this. I don't know how I feel about like green tea flavors. Yeah, so check it out. So here's the.
It really doesn't look that good.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't like that it's green inside.
I feel like I see a lot of, and this might just be my own anecdotal confirmation bias, but I feel like I see a lot of green tea flavors in East Asian and Korean snacks and things. Is that accurate, or is that just me being
Japanese specifically too? I see a lot of Japanese snacks with green tea. There's a whole section of it at the Japanese market down the street. But yeah, I feel like it's a little overdone as far as the green tea flavor, but there's certain things that are good as green tea, I think. So I don't know about Korean snacks.
The more I ate this, the more I liked it. I like the green tea over the regular Choco Pie.
Is it because it's less sweet?
I think so. I think
Which is
there's
why
like
I wouldn't like it.
a level of like
exactly
savoriness.
Mm-hmm.
So SooJin, why is it that it's only the original for you? It's original or bust for you?
Mm-hmm.
Probably because I'm so, like, when I think of Choco Pie, it's the chocolate.
All right.
That's it.
Yeah, there's no green tea in that.
There's no green tea. Yeah, it's not called green tea pie. It's Choco Pie.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, cacao pie.
Do your kids like these too?
Wait, yeah.
Yes,
So
yeah,
what
my
was
daughter
the
does.
cacao pie like?
Huh?
Honestly, I couldn't taste a difference.
It didn't
I've
taste
probably
like a
ate like
dark
5
chocolate.
Didn't taste
or
more
anything?
chocolatey?
No, it
Oh,
tastes the
that's
exact
really
same to me.
disappointing. 'Cause I love dark chocolate even more than like milk chocolate. So
It might be
course,
my
less sweet.
unrefined, undignified palate. That might be one of the reasons that I have these issues with taste, but it's fine.
Have you ever had the Orion version as well, SooJin?
I have.
And it's not as good. Again, not the original.
I think I feel like I should do a blind taste test because I'm definitely biased to the Choco Pie.
Oh, there we go. We do a blind taste test with a moon pie, an Orion pie, and
a Choco Pie.
Yes, there we go. You can really figure it out from there. I saw a moon pie advertisement recently. They had a pumpkin spice flavor coming out. So in case anyone wants to try pumpkin spice, 'tis the season. But
interesting.
I don't know if that sounds any good.
So you said your kids like these as well. Nathan posted a photo earlier that he had sliced one in half to cut down on the sugar and to promote sharing. Is that something that you do in your household as well, or does everybody get their own pie?
Gosh, so I mean, I have one daughter, but we end up sharing a lot. So actually, yeah, I guess.
Okay.
But not because I'm trying to teach her how to share. It's just I think it just comes from, like when we were little, I would always just break something in half and we both have it. So
I noticed that too with Korean culture, though. When I was there, everything is about sharing. The food, the drink, even desserts. So, I mean that totally makes sense.
Yeah, and my daughter, we eat from the same plate still, and it's very family style the way that we eat.
all right.
So that's something I read too, is that when you're sharing like a banchan, when you're sharing all the sides and stuff, it's very rude to dig for the best pieces. You take right off the top. And I'm like, I'm a best piece kind of guy, but it makes sense. I get it.
All right. Also, if you didn't know, banchan are the sides that come with Korean dishes, which Patrick and Nathan kept texting about in the group chat. And I was like, guys, what the heck is banchan? You can't just throw it out like I know that. And I was like, oh, I've eaten that before. I just didn't know the name. So
I just got that Korean cooking book. So
all about
I'm about to dive in head first.
Now we know this. Great. So everyone liked it? Everyone,
yeah.
What do you give it? What are you giving it, KJ, out of 5 Chacos?
Okay, so here's knowing that I don't love sweet things. So I've got the green tea Choco Pie. I'm going to give 4.5 Choco Pies out of 5 Choco Pies. Because it grew on me. I would probably eat it again. The original Choco Pie This business, I'm going to give it like a 3 out of 5 Choco-Pies. I like the green tea significantly more. Also, now that I'm thinking about it, the packaging is upside down if you hold it right side up on the back, which get your stuff together, packaging companies. So Nongshim with the shrimp crackers, they were impossible to open, and this one, mine are just not the right. Whoever's making those boxes needs to figure it out.
Oh, look, mine even says, have it with your favorite coffee in the morning.
Wow.
Boom.
There you go, Orion.
All right.
Cheers. Thinking about it all.
SooJin, you already obviously love the original Choco Pie. What would you give it out of 5 Choco Pies?
Oh, I got to do 5 out of 5. I'm loyal.
Perfect.
I'm loyal to the end.
Lotte, 5 out of 5. What about you, Nathan?
With coffee or chocolate milk, I'd say 4.5. It's the dryness at the end. That's why
true. It is a little dry. Yeah,
I think that coffee makes it perfect. So that's why I give it 4.5. If you didn't need the coffee, then I'd give it a 5. But I drink coffee all the time anyway, so it's okay.
I'm making this face because I just don't get where you guys are coming from. I agree with SooJin. 5 out of 5. You don't need a whole box in 3 days if they're not 7 out of 5, 10 out of 5. That's how good they are. We're gonna revisit these later. We're gonna update your ratings.
I also have to say I'm biased because like the original Choco Pie is my first Choco Pie that I had when I was little. So it's like, you know, when you have that first taste of something, like mac and cheese, for example.
Yep.
Like I actually prefer the fake stuff, the Kraft
mac and cheese
over like real homemade. Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I know it's crazy. And I consider
nostalgic.
myself a foodie, but when it comes to certain foods, there's certain I don't know if it's nostalgia or whatever, but and I know it's my nostalgia that is taking over my taste buds because. Like if I came at this objectively, I would say like, yes, it is dry.
No, don't do it, SooJin.
But
don't do it.
Yeah, no, I'm not Patrick. I'm loyal.
Yeah, stick to your guns. Yeah, that was great.
Thank you so much, SooJin, for coming on to the show. Where can people find you online?
So you can find me at Antiracist Parenting Podcast.com. You can also find me at odetogeorge.com because I am a co-editor with my friend Shay Cage. We are collecting essays, poems, and visual art that reflects on the significance of the George Floyd Memorial Site in Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Very cool.
Wow, perfect. Yeah, well, thank you again so much for coming on our first episode with a guest and with all that information. It was amazing. So thank you again, everyone. Check out SooJin's podcast. Check out our website, and thank you again.
Thanks so much for having me, everybody.
Thanks, SooJin.
So that was our conversation with SooJin Pate. You can find her at the Antiracist Parenting Podcast and also at odetogeorge.com. Amazing stuff that she has done, lots of really good information, and we really appreciate her coming on our show. For our show, you can find us on all the appropriate channels, all the podcasting goodies out there, at Janchi Show.
You can find SooJin Pate on Twitter and Instagram at SooJin Pate, or connect with her on Facebook and LinkedIn. Also, if you want to email the show, you can email us at jonchishow@justlikemedia.com. We would love to hear from you. So whether it is through the socials or through our email, however you can get in touch with us, please send us that sweet, sweet message.
Bye.
Goodbye.